Wouldn't it be nice to have several thought leaders in your industry know and love your brand? Start a podcast. Invite your industry's thought leaders to be guests on your show and start reaping the benefits of having a network full of industry influencers. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. This episode is sponsored by Directive Consulting, the B2B search marketing agency. Today, we are joined by Ryan Gray. Ryan is one of the managing partners at SGW Designworks. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's fantastic to have you on the show today. We are going to be talking about a topic that is very near and dear to your heart: why businesses should outsource product design. So I'm excited to dive into it. But before we do, Ryan, I would love to hear a little bit more about what you and your team at Designworks are up to.
Yeah, you bet. So SGW Designworks is a company that we created specifically to help other companies develop new products. And there are a lot of different elements to product development. We focus on the design and engineering part of that for companies that have a manufactured product. And the kinds of products that we work on range from consumer electronics to pieces of industrial equipment to defense products and everything in between. The types of companies we work with range from funded startups to Fortune 500 businesses that are very mature and everything in between. So we see a wide variety of projects come through our office, and it's fun because we get to oftentimes develop the very first of many types of products. So we do a lot of prototyping as part of our development process. And if you walk around our office, you'll see things on people's desks that don't exist anywhere else, and they're really the very first of something.
Yeah, that is very cool. I mean, you guys, you and your team must just, you got to have fun. I mean, obviously you and your team are brilliant, but that's also got to be a lot of fun. My college roommate, he was an engineer, and he was always building the first of, whatever it was. Now, obviously this was college fraternity days. So the things that he was building were, I'm sure not of the caliber of what you and your team are doing, but it was still a lot of fun to watch that creative design process happen.
Yeah, that's what engineers are kind of built for. And we're lucky enough in our office to have tools to enable engineers like your roommate to excel and to do things they wouldn't have been able to do in their dorm room or even in their garage at home, but still to apply the same creative process and kind of a methodical approach to developing new things. And the outcomes can be pretty amazing sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ryan, obviously today's topic right in your wheelhouse, again, why businesses should outsource product design. And we had a chance to talk a little bit before we started recording. We got a couple of points that we're going to get through. But number one, we're going to start off with this idea that, you need to challenge assumptions. Can you expand a little bit on that for us?
Yeah. So every business that we work with comes to us with a set of assumptions and an opportunity that's related to those assumptions. And a lot of times those assumptions are tied to how they believe the end user of a product is going to interact with that product, or even what the market may be willing to pay for a given product. The challenge is a lot of times those companies don't really realize that those assumptions are just that. They're assumptions and maybe not facts. And so we found that when the companies that we work with are willing to let us help them challenge the assumptions that they think are facts, that the outcomes are much better. And just as a really high level example of that, we had a project years ago that comes into my mind every time we have this conversation. And it's company came to us with really great idea for a great product, pretty well-defined market, and a target price point in mind. It was pretty low, pretty aggressive target price point. And you can imagine when you're designing a new product, having the price point of the product in mind gets directly to how much manufacturing cost you can deal with in the product, which gets to what your options are when it comes to the design of the product itself. So that target price is massive input into the development process and a massive constraint. And at that time, we were kind of new enough that we hadn't really built up, I guess, the courage to challenge a client on that assumption. So we went forward with development with that price target in mind, that cost target in mind. It did drive us down a development path with the configuration of the product. We get towards product launch, and we found through some research that we did that, holy cow, in fact, the market's willing to pay 20% more for this product than what we had constrained ourselves to. And if we had known that earlier on in the process, we could have gone a totally different direction with the product and included some features in it that would have really differentiated the product from the competition and made the product more successful for the client. Mm-hmm. So, fast forward to today, we really get deep into conversations with the clients about what is an assumption, how can we validate or invalidate that assumption. And when we really get focused on it is if a client gets territorial about us challenging an assumption, that's one that we know we have to encourage them to let us dig deeper on, because those are the ones that are most important.
Yeah. Those feel like the ones that maybe just sort of have the blinders on. They've got that vision, but those are the ones I would imagine that you need to push back a little bit more, really force them to challenge that assumption.
Yeah, exactly. And it's usually these assumptions come from somewhere credible. It's not like they come up with these things out of the blue, whether it's a price point or an assumption around a feature that a product must have. It's based on something they've learned over the years from other products that they may be selling or producing, but it just oftentimes the assumption itself is just misguided, or maybe the causational relationship between kind of the assumption and the information they had that led to it isn't quite right. And so we need to help them unwind those things. And when the clients let us do that, the outcomes are much better.
Doesn't surprise me. It makes a lot of sense.
It's story time, and this growth story is about search engine marketing. Okay, so the story revolves around eSub, a project management SaaS company specifically for subcontractors. Even though eSub had incredible customer retention, they struggled with growth. Being a niche service, they discovered that there was little demand expressed for their solutions within search engines. To take on this challenge, eSub hired Directive Consulting, the B2B search marketing agency. After refining targeting, pre-qualifying clicks with an ad copy, and developing custom landing pages, Directive was able to increase eSub's marketing qualified leads by 71%, while decreasing their cost per lead by 65%. I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
So beyond then this idea of helping them challenge assumptions as being one of the reasons why you should outsource your product design, another thing that you were going to be talking about is kind of not having to redirect your internal team. That can be like a big time and resource saver. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so really all of the companies that we work with have brilliant people inside of them that are, in marketing roles, and a lot of times in engineering and technical roles as well. But if the business is healthy, those people, both the technical folks and the non-technical folks, are super busy with the existing product lines the business is dealing with, with business growth concerns and other stuff that is kind of outside of the realm of product development. And nonetheless, a lot of those companies take those internal resources and try to realign them to product development. And oftentimes that becomes really difficult to deal with, because product development itself is an all-encompassing, very challenging thing that just redirecting internal teams to kind of focus on for a while, it's super disruptive at best, and at worst leads to a lot of missed deadlines and failed product launches. So we like to talk to companies about the fact that, if you consider for a second using an outside group that specializes in product development, you're going to be able to keep your internal teams focused on what's really critical for your day-to-day in your business. You're not going to be distracting your internal engineering resources. You're going to be able to kind of throttle that outside group up and down depending on, the cash flow of your business. And you're going to be bringing in specialists that only do product development instead of having to juggle product development with sustaining engineering of an existing product line. And it's just one of those things that leads to much better outcomes. It's something we truly believe in. We've built this whole business around the notion that using outside specialist product development is a healthy choice for a business, even when they do have really good internal technical resources. Just as an example, we work with a big medical device manufacturing company, one of the top 3 in the US. They have brilliant engineers internally. They have something like, I think it's 126 PhDs that are all specialized in various areas working on development. These are brilliant people.
Yeah.
But they've brought us in to tackle a very specific development problem that they had. And we were able to work through this problem and get to the end state of the design in a matter of months for them. They had been working on it 6 years internally and hadn't been able to get the same spot. And it's not because their people are not intelligent people. It's just they're so distracted with all the other stuff they have to get done that finding time for the special projects is really tough.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, it's just allocating your resources in the most efficient way possible. Obviously, with 100+ PhDs, no one is questioning, how much brain power they're bringing to the table, or that they would be incapable of doing it. But like you're saying, just allow them to do the thing that they need to focus on and continue to do it, and bring in a specialist to just save yourself the headache at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah. Let those valuable internal resources focus on the key things that you hired them for in the first place, rather than distracting them with basically another entire bucket of expertise that they need to go become expert in, which is product development.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this third point, Ryan, I think is actually probably, in my opinion, very related to the first point, but it still merits its own sort of section, is that we're going to be talking about a fresh perspective and how valuable a fresh perspective can be when it comes to product design. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. And it is related to both, the notion of challenging assumptions, and it is related to the notion of, getting things done without overburdening your inside teams. But yeah, the notion of fresh perspective is actually, that is a concept that goes beyond product development. And it is true for lots of business related topics, and even non-business related topics. When you're able to bring in a fresh set of eyes and fresh perspective on a problem, you often are able to identify solutions that are more diverse and sometimes more compelling than what you'd be able to do on your own. And we live and die on our ability to identify fresh solutions for clients that they could not come up with on their own, or maybe for whatever reason, because of internal momentum in their organizations, just were not able to come to on their own. It's at the heart of what we do. And when people bring technical problems to us, a lot of times we'll start by asking them what possible solutions they've identified to the problem, and use that as a springboard to new discussions around different ways to consider the problem, different perspective to put on the problem that leads us to different solution sets that are more valuable than what they've been able to come up with on their own.
Yep, absolutely. So, Ryan, I mean, this has been, some tremendous information, especially, and actionable information, as it relates to product design. You are one of the managing partners at a creative, a very successful company, SGW again. And this is one of the questions that we have been given the opportunity to ask our guests in 2018. And I'm excited to ask you, is this idea of legacy, and, kind of as it relates to SGW, as it, professionally, personally, a combination of the two. Ryan, what kind of legacy are you hoping to leave behind at the end of the day?
So for us, our legacy as a professional services company focused on producing creative solutions for other companies, we actually consider our legacy really tied to the success of our client companies. And the most pure way to think of a legacy for us is that our legacy is sort of embodied in the successful products that our clients launch. So in all reality, our legacy is a physical manifestation of these products that our clients are able to launch and market and be successful with, because they engaged us to provide creative solutions and technical solutions to engineering problems on these products. So even though that's maybe not as lofty as some business founders may be able to come up with as a response, I think it's a pragmatic but real way that we look at legacy as SGW Designworks.
That's fantastic. Well, Ryan, again, I can't thank you enough for your time, for your wisdom, sharing that with our listeners. Before I let you go, if anyone in our audience is interested in connecting with you and they want to find out more about today's topic, they want to find out more about SGW Designworks, they want to just connect with you, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
The best place to find out more about us or to contact us is just to go to our website, which is sgwdesignworks.com. And from there, you can email us directly, or you can submit information about a project you may have coming up for us to review. And you can also link to all of our social media profiles and content from there as well. So website is the best place to start. Again, that's sgwdesignworks.com.
Fantastic. Ryan, thank you again so much. It was a pleasure getting to interview you today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jonathan.
There are lots of ways to build a community, and we've chosen to build the B2B growth community through this podcast. But because of the way podcasts work, it's really hard to engage with our listeners. And without engagement, it's tough to build a great community. So here's what we've decided to do. We're organizing small dinners across the country with our listeners and guests. No sales pitches, no agenda, just great conversations with like-minded people. We'll talk business, we'll talk family, we'll talk goals and dreams. We'll build friendships. So if you'd like to be a part of a B2B growth dinner in a city near you, go to b2bgrowthdinners.com. That's b2bgrowthdinners.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.